So, why mushrooms? Well, you've got plants, you've got animals, and then you've got mushrooms. They're a completely separate kingdom of life, and everywhere. They're cool, they're barely understood, they're kind of like in real life Pokemon. Like, there's all sorts of species where study is, it's not studied as much as it should be, and really it kind of studies in its infancy. There's mushrooms come into a lot of kind of industrial process. You've got cheese and stuff and beer and stuff like that. It's all technically mycology. It's all starting life as some sort of microbes and fungi. So, yeah, like I said, you've got plants, you've got animals, and you've got mushrooms. Mushrooms start life as spores. We're probably inhaling spores as we speak. There's millions of them floating about in the air. Generally microscopic, but you will see them if they clump up. And mushrooms themselves, they're actually the reproductive organ of a mycelial network that lives under the ground. So if you see a mushroom, you can brush away the ground a bit, you'll start seeing some white fluffy thread-like material under the ground, and that's the mycelial network. So that will be spreading out under the ground for a lot more than you'll actually see the mushrooms, although you'll sometimes see mushrooms growing in circles known as fairy circles, which generally kind of gives you an idea of the size of the mycelial network underground. But what will happen is these little white threads will stretch out and consume as much nutrients as they can, and then eventually they'll consume all the nutrients they can, and then they'll fruit, which is what the mushrooms you see, they reproduce, they drop spores. So yeah, that's nesting. So yeah, mushrooms start life as spores, flying all over the place. Two compatible spores meet on the right conditions, so you need lots of humidity and a source of nutrients. The two compatible spores will meet and they'll start forming these little threads that go out and meet each other, and then you've got mycelial growth. So the mycelial growth will keep growing. If you think about maybe like a log, a stick or something, they'll consume as much nutrients, they'll hit the edge of their container, the nutrient, their log or whatever, and then they'll begin to fruit once they've run out of things to consume. So you'll start getting a mushroom kind of pinning, really early stage of life. Then as they grow, you'll see more kind of what you would think of as a mushroom. Then eventually they'll drop spores and the cycle begins again. You get more mushrooms. So why clone mushrooms? Well, for a start, every time you get mushrooms growing from spores, you're rolling a genetic lottery. You don't know what you're going to get. If you've got a really vigorous, fast-growing mushroom that you're happy growing, you might not get that. You might get its bastard offspring. So, yeah, for a start, you know what you're getting, but also it's a hell of a lot quicker. So, with spores, you have to wait for these spores to start germinating. It's kind of like growing a seed. It takes a while to have the right conditions. With cloning, you're starting with a bit of mycelium, you're putting that onto a growth medium, and it's growing straight from that. So you cut out that kind of really early life cycle stage. But also high level approach of how you clone. So get a sample of mycelium from a mushroom or whatever, and put that in a growth medium. So growth mediums can be grain, they can be agar, they can be a wet bit of cardboard, it can really be anything. You've seen what mushrooms will grow out of, you'll get them growing where you least expect. So they're not too fussy about what they grow on, but I will get back into that later. And then you wait. So you've got this bit of mushroom on whatever, and then you're waiting. It can be weeks, months, depending on the speed of growth. Then once you've got that, you've got your mycelium, you want to transfer that to grain or some sort of sugar water to create liquid culture. So I'm going to talk about grain spawn, which is grain that's basically being consumed by mushrooms, but you also get liquid culture, which is generally about 6% sugar water with mycelium growing in it. You'll have like a little magnetic stirring bar and one of those cool little magnetic stirrers like you see in labs, and you'll end up having this cloudy looking water with these little strings of mycelium in it that allows you to take a bit of a shortcut. So you either then transfer your grain spawn or liquid culture to a substrate, then again wait, and then induced rooting conditions. So this could be it's run out of nutrients to eat. In oyster mushrooms, generally they want fresh air. And then after a while, you'll have mushrooms. So let's get into that a bit more in depth. So if you want to do this, what do you need? For a start, you need some sort of healthy mushroom that you can clone. You need sterilised tools, so scalpels, tweezers, dental picks. You'll need a hell of a lot of isopropyl alcohol, watered down to 70%, same way as if you remember during lockdown and COVID, if people were making their own hand sanitizer, don't use pure alcohol, water it down to 70% because it penetrates through cell walls and bursts them and kills all the stuff you don't want. Then you need somewhere to grow it, so petri dishes, jars, some bit of cardboard, old books, whatever. And then to actually, you're going to want to be preparing grain later on for actual substrate and bags, so you want a pressure cooker so you can have sterile conditions in your house, because boiling things takes a long time. So the pressure cooker allows you to change the atmospheric pressure and boil things for a bit longer rather than having to boil a bag of grain for hours and hours on end. If you pop it in a pressure cooker, then it's probably 90 minutes or so because things boil fast under pressure. You need bags or jars to put the grain in, a clean workspace, and because there's so much cleaning and waiting involved, you really want a plan. Just doesn't need to be too depth, but scribble something down on paper if you're going to do this, because you're going to spend a lot of time cleaning, so you don't want to start doing something and go, oh shit, I should have grabbed that, then have to start cleaning all over again, and yeah, get it. So source your mushrooms. Morrison's is good. Like, unless you know what you're doing, don't go picking mushrooms in the wild, or if you're going to do that, go with somebody that knows what they're doing. But the easiest way to start this process, go to the supermarket. I'd recommend Morrison's. They've got a nice little woodland mix there that I think's, I don't know, is it like 11 pence or 20 pence cheaper, whatever, than their oyster mushrooms. I think it's got shiitake, maitake, oyster mushrooms, and yeah, other supermarkets do exist, but I think Morrison's the only one that has oyster mushrooms, and oyster mushrooms are nice and easy to clone because they're decomposers, pretty resistant to contaminants, and they'll eat most things that are kind of cellulose based. So I've started this process with oyster mushrooms. So first of all, you're going to involve a lot of cleaning, so I'd recommend put some music on, make yourself comfortable, and kind of let's prep for surgery. So generally what I'd like to do is I have a table, I'll get all the clutter off it, clear as much space as possible, and then start cleaning that. Again, 70% iso alcohol, you can use bleach or whatever, but you can buy like 5 litre things of iso and wash it down, it's cheap, so yeah, iso. So you also want to clean your mushroom as well, so I'm using 3% hydrogen peroxide for that, and that will just kill any sort of contaminants, dirt, anything you don't want, any unwanted microbes on the outside of the mushroom. So you spray this onto the mushroom foams up a wee bit as it kind of effectively burns the outside of its skin with peroxide, but yeah, cruelty to the mushroom, sorry. You want to clean your instruments, so ideally these will be pressure cooked, autoclaved, whatever, or single use, but clean scalpel, spray it again, iso alcohol, clean yourself. Sometimes I'll stop, go for a shower, make sure I'm nice and clean, but again, surgical spirit, iso alcohol, you get the idea. Then you clean your workspace yet again, and then finally, once you've done all that cleaning, you want to actually prepare your sterile area. So if you're doing this professionally, you've got a nice HEPA filtered laminar flow hood that sits in front of you, puts out sterile air that's all horizontal and makes it nice and easy to work in front of, that you're not going to introduce all sorts of unwanted contaminants. If you're doing this at home, you're going to buy something like that on eBay, a kind of pop-up tent, or you're going to buy a big, really useful box, a big plastic box, cut a couple of holes in it and make a still air box. The idea here is you're trying to create a sterile environment as possible. You want somewhere you can work, but isn't going to have much in terms of air blowing in unwanted spores, isn't going to be bringing any other unwanted contaminants. Then once you've got this environment up, again, I'll spray it with ISO. So yeah, there's a lot of ISO being sprayed about. You can sterilise your tools. I have used a little torch and flame before to sterilise scalpels and stuff, but if you're spraying around a hell of a lot of 70% alcohol, just be careful with what you're doing, because I have lost a few arm hairs that way, so yeah. So you've got your area, clean up some more, clean yourself, mask up, glove up, ready to go. Cool. So you're saying, why all this cleaning? You've seen mushrooms, they don't particularly grow in clean environments. They're growing out literal shit at times, so... But because you're trying to grow a specific type of mushroom that's generally the kind of start life as microbes, you're dealing with resource constraint, you're trying to create a very controlled environment, you want to grow something, you want to keep all the other unwanted microbes out, so that's why there's this constant cleaning. And mycology actually, there's a hell of a lot of cleaning and waiting and very little doing. You do something, you wait. You clean some more, you wait. And that's mycology, but still kind of fun. It doesn't involve a keyboard or screen, so something else. So here's the process. So in your sterile environment, you'll rip open your specimen. So ripping open a mushroom. Why rip? Because you want to keep your scalpel blades or any other tools nice and sterile. You don't want to introduce any contaminants here. So what I'll generally do is, slowly as possible, rip the mushroom, because you don't want to quickly rip it and make lots of spores and stuff airborne. Then what you'll do with the scalpel is cut a nice little section, just like that there, and then put that in the centre of your growth medium. So in this case, it's a petri dish. And then you seal it and you wait. And you hope. So, see there, like, top one there, like that's photo before, that's how it started there, and I broke it. So it's kind of getting fluffy, but because there's a lot of chance for things to going wrong, same as backups, like 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is 2, so I've done 3. So I've got a bit of redundancy here, so you can actually see the top plate here is getting quite fluffy. This one doesn't seem to be growing very much, but both of them seem to be growing quite nicely. And when I say hope, and that's why I'm saying hope, because this is these plates this morning in the pilgrim. So if you want to have a look and pass them around, you don't open them and sniff anything of them. So that's some sort of contamination there that really don't want. So that's why we're cleaning. This is, I don't know what it is. It could be trichoderma. I'm not an expert in molds and that kind of thing, but you can see here there's some nasty looking blue stuff that we don't want. We want this nice white fluffy stuff that's nice and healthy. So the reason you're growing these in petri dishes or agar is it's nice and easy. So I can open that up, get a scalpel, just cut that nice section out there, put that onto another agar plate, and hopefully not deal with any of that nice contamination. And then when I'm ready to start putting that into grain, I can then isolate that and not have to deal with all that nasty contamination. So earlier on I mentioned liquid culture, and these plates, I started them all 2 weeks ago. I started this plate at the same time. That was with liquid culture, and actually you can see there, the plate's nice, healthy, white, fluffy. You've got mycelial growth all over the plate. And actually, these little dogs here, I think probably in a week or two you're going to start having tiniest little pins of oyster mushrooms forming as they try and fruit, but there's not going to be enough nutrients and enough fresh air and stuff in there, but you might get some really tiny mushrooms in there. But because liquid culture is basically a liquid slurry of mycelial genetics, just spraying that onto the plate with a syringe, in no time at all I had a nice white fluffy plate that's nice and healthy. So generally that's the easiest way to do it, but if you're starting from fresh, you need to start from something. So the process would be, you cut the plate, you put it on there, you wait for it to grow nice and white fluffy, if I was a bit more organised, I would have started this talk before 2 weeks ago, and you would have had nice little arms and leg kind of things, little bits coming out, going out and consuming stuff, but no, I'm not that organised, so that's what it should look like when it's done. That's processed. You can see some contamination in there. But then once you're ready, you've got your nice fluffy white plate, you're ready to start growing some mushrooms. So for that, you want to create some grain spawn. So what I use is rye grain. Buy a bag of rye grain from anywhere, Amazon or whatever, put it in a pot, fill the pot with water, lid on the pot, leave it overnight. The next day, get the grain, put it through a sieve, colander, drain it, then I like to put a big towel over the table and just spread the grain like that. So, and just leave it. Mushrooms like moisture, they can live in humidity up to pretty much 100%, but so do other things, and grain starts to rot if it's too wet. So you want it moist but not wet. So I'll leave the grain like that over the table, and then once it's ready, I'll either put it in a mushroom bag, which are just generally plastic bags. A lot of them now can be composted, industrial compost, when it creates the right heat, or you can use jars, but traditionally they were just plastic bags with air vents in them, which I'll show you now. So again, inoculate grain. Sorry, I don't have a picture of this. PowerPoint gave me this one. It's very much, again, it's clean, sterile workspace, and then you're either putting liquid culture into the grain, or you're cutting up a bit of an agar plate and putting those little agar wedges in there with the mycelium, and you'll start seeing that colonize the grain. So that's basically a mushroom bag here, and you can see there's the grain, but you can also see the mycelium starting to form and grow out of that. And then you wait. And then you wait some more. And after a while, it'll have a nice solid bag that will effectively kind of feel like a brick of mycelium that you'll start getting. You can see the grain, you'll also start getting some kind of what's known as mycopis. It's kind of this brownish, horrible liquid that you'll see in the bags, but yeah, it's just some of the excess liquid that the mycelium network's just pissing out effectively, and you'll see that forming in the bag. So that's kind of what that kind of brown stuff is. So you're waiting, eventually the bag's ready, and you do some more stuff. So a while back I'd done a thread on Twitter about upping your OPSEC by turning your shreddings into mushrooms. So because I'm not that organised, I've borrowed some stuff from that. So substrate, normally it's not shredded paper. If you're going to grow oyster mushrooms to eat, you probably don't want to use bits of shredded paper. You don't know the heavy metals and inks and stuff. You want to use something like straw, wood. You can buy straw pellets. You can just go to a pet shop and buy a big bag of hay. Oyster mushrooms really aren't fussy about what they eat. As long as it's got cellulose in it, it's happy. So dried dead grass, paper, cardboard, old books. Yeah, oyster mushrooms still happily eat that up, which is why if you want to get into this, oyster mushrooms are a really nice, easy place to start because it's pretty redundant. Yeah, hard to get it wrong. So, yeah, so you end up with a shredded bag of shreddings, grass, whatever. You soak it, drain off any excess water, and then put bits of your grain spawn in there. So, here's one I made earlier. And unfortunately, this was only 2 days earlier, 3 days actually, Thursday. So it's got a lot of shredding in it, and you can see tiniest bits of grain spawn. You can actually start seeing little bits coming off. So although it looks gross, it's grain spawn, cardboard, shredded TV licensing threat letters, that kind of crap. So at least I'm putting them to good use. So put them in and wait, and after a while, like weeks, you'll have a nice big fluffy solid block like that. And then you wait some more, and you can start seeing the formation of like mushroom pins there, like primordial mushroom pins. It's annoying. And then you wait, and then you wait a bit more. And oyster mushrooms really like fresh air, so if you're growing these at a house, they're probably not going to get enough fresh air, but they'll still work. You'll probably find that try and grow oyster mushrooms inside, they grow quite long and stringy almost, really long stems, whereas if you see them growing in trees in the wild, they're generally just almost kind of look the shells coming off the plant. You'll just have that top bit, you won't have these big long stems. But yeah, as you wait, like within days of seeing kind of the initial mushroom pins, they start to grow bigger and bigger, and will form something like that. And then eventually they'll fruit. So I think actually I took this picture slightly too early. This is shredded paper for anyway, so what will happen is once they're ready to drop spores, the edges will turn up slightly and they'll put a big mass of white, silvery, transparent oyster mushroom spores everywhere. So if you're growing this in a house, when you see them at that kind of stage, it's probably a time to put some newspaper or something down, because otherwise your furniture, carpet, whatever is going to be covered in spores. Then if you get a bit of moisture in there, yeah, you can see where I'm going. Like, oyster mushrooms love to decompose stuff, so you probably want to be careful about what they're going to decompose. I've not grown any in my house since I moved. I've grew plenty in my flat, but that's not my responsibility anymore, so if the new owners are watching this, sorry. So now what? Yeah, so microremediation, that's really cool. So if you've got some toxic wasteland and ex-industrial land, what there's a lot of people doing nowadays is getting truckloads of wood chips and inoculating them in mushrooms and then dumping them in that land. So because mushrooms like to break down various sources of carbon, turns out oyster mushrooms are actually really good at breaking down oils and oil-like products and the like. So there's studies and there's a lot of research going on about microremediation using mycelium and mushrooms to turn wasteland into fertile land that's very much alive. And actually there's some type of oyster mushrooms that are actually breaking down plastic, which is really cool. I think my understanding is they discovered in a lab they had petri dishes of mushroom and effectively ate through one of the dishes, and they went, oh, we should probably cultivate this because plastic waste is a massive problem. So if you want to hear somebody talk much more eloquently about that, go Google Paul Stamets, How Mushrooms Will Save the World. He does a great job of talking about how awesome mushrooms are and talking about microremediation, that kind of thing. And yeah, you can turn things into mushrooms. So that's a book. Soaked it in a Ziploc bag, boiling water for a while to kill off anything I didn't want. Drained it, opened it up, shoved some mushroom spawn between the pages, left it lying for a while, and you've got mushrooms coming out of it. But yeah, I just want to say AI can get the fuck out, because this is an area that, with some caveats, there's some good use for traditional like machine learning, but AI in mycology is an area that's causing some real world harm. So Amazon, for a while, you were getting AI-generated books and identifying mushrooms. There's quite a few deadly mushrooms in the UK, so you put two and two together, you can go quite wrong very quickly. Some of these books have been shown that, yeah, they misidentified potentially deadly mushrooms. And I think recently Google's AI has been doing the same. It's been, people put a photo of mushrooms into Google search. Google's AI goes, yeah, I know what that is. It's this, go eat it, it's delicious. And then you die. Ooh. So, yeah.
They won't be searching for it again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this keeps the search trends way down. Yeah, so like, you can, yeah, so obviously you can grow mushrooms with this, but you can probably figure that out. Some cool researchers somewhere have put king oyster mushrooms in a robotic body and it reacts to sound and light. I've not really done enough of the research into that, but that's it there, and I want to throw it in there because it's a mushroom with a robotic body. It's like, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Like, people have done research. Like, you'll have like one petri dish there, one petri dish there, and you expose mycelium in this dish to something, and the mycelium in that dish reacts. Can't explain it, but apparently there's studies that say that happens. So, yeah, don't know if that's cool as fuck. And yeah, I suppose you can quit InfoSec and go create a mushroom farm because, to be honest, that's probably where I'm going. So, so yeah, how do you get started? So Yeah, I think I actually messed up a copy and paste there, so that should be growing some mushrooms by Paul Stamets. That should be spread across 2 bullet points. I tried to rearrange that, but that's big book, really good book. Lots of information about growing various types of mushroom. You've got a lot of mushrooms that will only grow in harmony with certain types of plants and trees, like mycorrhizal fungi. So you'll have like chanterelles that are really desirable for eating. They'll only grow with certain types of wood. You've got the infamous red Amanita muscaria that I think Viking berserkers apparently used before they went to war. They'll only grow with, I think, generally kind of pine trees and the like. So if you look around Evergreens, you'll generally find these big, massive red and white caps that contain muscimol and all these other interesting compounds that if you mix with wine, you can do stuff. So, yeah, there's Reddit. There's a subreddit for mycology, but kind of off Reddit these days for reasons. But where I'd say the exception to AI would be the iNaturalist app, which I've got in there. And that's a really cool app. It's pretty good at actually identifying mushrooms. But the really cool thing about it is it's citizen science. You can go download all the data, but as you identify stuff, you'll also have people come in and peer review your identifications. So I'll wander about the forest, I'll find a mushroom and go, oh, I think it looks like that, I think it's that. And the machine learning go, hey, it's that. Then a week or 2 days later, or however long later, you'll have somebody comment and say, actually, no, it's that. If you break it open, smell it, you'll smells faintly like honey, so it's a honey fungus, for example. And it's actually really nice having that feedback from real life humans that people are actually spending a lot of time going around and going, what mushroom's growing there? Okay, this person's misidentified that, let's correct it, and actually working on the quality over the overall data set. I think the iNaturalist app was originally started by National Geographic. I don't know if they're still as much of a kind of big stakeholder as they were, but it identifies plants, animals, mushrooms, so give it a shot if you want to get into mycology. If you need to get kit, eBay is the easiest way to do it. So I was originally planning to talk through, okay, you can make the agar in your kitchen, you can make all this, but that's a lot of time. And like I said earlier, I was very late starting this, so you can go on eBay, you can search for liquid culture, you'll have a variety of mushroom strains to pick for. You'll get a syringe in the post that'll have some cloudy liquid. You inject it into a green bag, which you can also buy on eBay, and you'll have mushrooms. Or you can actually just go buy a mushroom grow kit if you really want to start. Easy, you go buy a pre-inoculated bag of oyster mushrooms, you sit in the window ledge, you cut some holes in it, and you have oyster mushrooms. But eBay is really good. You can buy all the scalpels and nonsense there, along with big 5-litre jugs of iso alcohol for sterilising and hydrogen peroxide and stuff. And yeah, don't drink iso. It's not that kind of alcohol. Or yeah, come speak to me as well if you're interested. So I think, don't know how much time, but Q&A, anyone? Jen?
How on earth did you get started with this? You just wake up one morning and go, I want to clone mushrooms.
I think Paul Stamets takes a lot of credit. So he's got this really good TED talk on how mushrooms will save the world. He goes into the microremediation about like turning big bits of wasteland into flowering oases. He talks about how mushrooms can help mental health, a lot of issues there, because there's a lot of research going on in King's College, London Imperial, John Hopkins on psilocybin for depression, anxiety, and like...
Is that because of the vitamin D then? You get really strong vitamin D from mushrooms.
You do have really strong vitamin D because they get that from the earth, but generally the trials they're doing are more around psychedelics, so that concept is your brain set in your whatever your ways. You've got what's known as the default mode network, which is you wake up in the morning, this is your default behaviour, this is what you do. So I think there's a lot of science going on just now with various psychedelics, including psilocybin from mushrooms, although they generally use lab synthesized stuff, saying that if you shake up your default mode network, introduce some randomness, you can basically change people's habits. So combine that with proper therapy, preparation, meditation, or whatever. You've got people going into hospitals effectively getting treatment effectively on magic mushrooms.
Wow.
They'll go in, they'll come back, and actually compared to SSRIs and the likes, they're actually showing a lot of efficiency, but obviously it's how you scale that, because it doesn't really fit nicely into our kind of model of clinical trials and take this one pill and that's the only variable, because you're having to pair this with therapy. If you throw somebody a bunch of mushrooms from the room, it's probably not going to end well. Okay.
My question is, I need to.
That's not a question, that's a statement.
Cool.
Can my friends play with your friends? No, bye. Okay, bye. Bye.
So, come see me if you have any more questions or anything like that, but
How does the Discovery Spore Drive work?
I don't know, but they actually did name the doctor after Paul Stamets and that.
I know,
So,
the character, yeah.
So I really like that, yeah, and there's like, I think they actually go join the mycelial network in one of the episodes or something like that. They go inside the spore drive, and I did like that.
That was really good. Thank you.
Thank you.